Hello, welcome back to Nether Creature, a crafting channel. Today, we're going to build a bridge. We're going to start with a length of XPS foam. This one happens to be 18 by 4 inches. But you can build a bridge however big you'd like. Once we have that cut out, we are going to section it off in 1 inch by 1 inch squares using a yardstick. For this bridge, we're going to be using it in Dungeons and Dragons. So each 1 inch square is going to equal 5 feet of move distance. That'll make it easy to identify for the players at the table. As you can see, once we've scored the lines, we go back with a pencil and make the indentations just a little bit deeper. Once that's all marked off, we're going to go back and damage some of these squares by adding some cracks and crevices with the same pencil technique. To add some interest, we're going to break off some pieces and just unsquare the edges to give it that real old world feel. You could skip this step if you didn't want your bridge to look old, but in my world, everything's worn down. Speaking of old things, here's an ancient crafting technique in which you take some aluminum foil, crumple it into a ball, and roll it all over flat surfaces of foam. This is going to give it some visual interest and add a rock-like texture when painted. Once that's all done, I wanted to build some archways to go over the bridge. This is going to be a little bit modular, so you can either have the archways hanging over the bridge or using them to support underneath the bridge. Either way, let's see how we do that. We start by drawing a pretty simple pattern out on a grid paper and using our bridge as a guide to see how wide we want our buttresses, the support beams, portcullis, things of that nature. Here I am using the bridge as a guide for these bricks I just cut out, making sure they're kind of centered. Once that's lined up, we are just going to mark it with the bridge as a guide. We're going to extend that line all the way to the top, and then just freehand a doorway, a frame, an entrance. At this point here, you can see I'm finding the center of the brick. That way it makes it easier to freehand the door frame or portcullis. I'm using a pen now just to score in that mark a little better before making incisions with a X-Acto knife. Take a couple passes to get through that, but with some patience and a steady hand, you can make it look pretty good. And if it's a little banged up, no big deal. This is all going to be stone texture later anyway. Here's a look of kind of what I'm going for when the bridge is using these structures as a portcullis. Let's go ahead and summon our hot glue gun, and we're going to glue these two pieces together because we want them to be 2 inches wide so that people could stand on them if it's climbed. Now we're going to use the same technique we did on the actual bridge, and we're going to mark these in 1 inch by 1 inch squares. That way if the players do decide to climb it, it'll be easy for them to track how far up they are. Pretty simple. Once I did one side, I just extended that line to the other side and used that as a guide. It doesn't have to be perfect, it'll work out fine. Let your heart guide your hand. Doing all the same things we did on the bridge, we are going to roll it with aluminum foil and damage these as well. That way they look uniform next to the bridge, and it all ties together. Not looking too bad, if I do say so myself. For the painting technique with foam, the first thing we're going to do is use some PVA glue. In this case, I'm just using regular Elmer's glue and black paint. Mix that up, a little bit of water, slap it all over this piece. This is not only going to help act as the first layer of paint, but it's going to help harden the foam, make it a little bit more structurally sound. Alright, looking pretty good. Looks like I've made some serious battle damage in the middle of that and made a hole. Did that on purpose because I thought maybe I could use that hole as maybe a trap or some sort. We're going to cover that up later. You'll see. So to fill that hole, we are going to use some popsicle sticks. Here's one with the ends already cut off. All we're going to do is take a sharp blade and just being very careful, measure how big we want these, and we are going to chop it in half again, and then inevitably split it down the middle a couple of times to make little wood planks. Once you have enough wood planks to cover the hole, you can take those little matchsticks and just give them some damage. Give them a little bit more wood texture, as it were. Gluing these is a little bit fiddly, but with some patience, you can get it done. I started by just kind of gluing each side and placing them, but then I realized that wasn't going to stick too good. So I actually used these little matchsticks to kind of jab them in to the foam, as you can see here. We're kind of just jabbing one end in and then gluing it down. Alright, looking pretty good. On to the next step. The next day, once that was all dry, we got some paint out. For our stone texture, we're just going to use a pretty simple gray and a blue and a raw umber, I believe, some kind of brown. We're going to mix the blue with the gray and the brown with the gray. Just kind of slap it all over. You could really use any colors you want. My stones are going to have some brown and blue to them this time, I decided. Same thing with the bridge, just browns and grays and blues and grays. Once that's all dry, we are going to use some oil paints. So one of my favorite techniques for doing washes on big terrain, you just use some paint thinner. In this case, I'm using an odorless one. That way I can do this inside. A little bit of, I think that was burnt umber, and just some green oil paint. We're gonna mix the two together. And yeah, the green's gonna give the rock like a mossy kind of look, and the brown's just gonna give it like a dirty look. So using the green on the bottom of these portcullises and brown on the top, but you can switch it up, do it however you want. Really, this oil wash is just going to help seep into the cracks and crevices, showing all that texture that we did at the beginning. And if it looks really shiny, that's because while the oil paint is wet, it is really shiny. But I assure you this dries matte, and that is kind of the magic of oil paints. Cool part is too, if you go too heavy-handed and you don't dig it, you have almost 24 whole hours to apply some more paint thinner to a paper towel or napkin and wipe it away. We saved the cutouts from our portcullises because I did want to make some doors, so let me show you how I did that. I started by just doing some, 1/4-inch lines to represent big wood planks that this door would be made out of. Then just taking a pencil and lightly etching in some wood grain by kind of just mixing up where your hand is positioned. You can do this pretty simple. I'm not even great at art, and I thought this turned out pretty cool. Same thing as we did with the stone structures. We are going to use a pen to kind of deepen these incisions in the wood planks to give them more definition. And yeah, with a little bit of patience, we did both sides. Kind of hard to tell, but yeah, looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and paint that up, Mod Podge style. Boom. Alright, for the reveal, I'm going to show you guys a couple different ways you can set this bridge up. This first example is how I used it in my last D&D session to torture my players a bit. It may not be the fanciest of bridges, but it is modular and can be used in multiple different settings. What I liked about making a flat bridge is that using a battle mat underneath, you can emphasize any amount of fall damage you want. This bridge could be as high or as short as you want it to be. If your players don't have much of an imagination, you can set it up like this. Anyways, if you've made it this far, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching. Sorry it's been so long since a crafting video, but we're trying to get back into it. So do all that YouTube stuff, like and subscribe. Thank you so much again. I love you all very much. Have a great day. Cheers.